Hello, my name is Caleb Miran, and today I'll be explaining some rules of agreement and some rules of government in different expressions. And we'll have a personal story, a personal anecdote that I hold into a class. So first of all, I'm going to share my ID to confirm my identity. And let me start reading, as you can see here, parts of this anecdote, and then we'll analyze some of the phrases we highlighted to see what parts of agreement and what terms on um, different government cases we can find specifically here. So first of all, on a regular Monday morning, my eighth grade class was buzzing, having some struggles there with the usual energy. However, a group of students in the back seemed to be having a bit too much fun, whispering and laughing as if Monday blues didn't apply to them. Politely asking them to settle down didn't do the trick, so it was evident I needed to step in before things escalated. Keeping my composure, I approached the group. Among them was student A. I'm redacting the name, a lively character who always had something to say. When I asked them to pay attention, student A responded with a cheeky remark. Despite my rising frustration, I kept my cool. I reminded student A, again redacting the name, about the need for basic respect in my class, both for me and their classmates. I also brought up the school rules, hoping it would resonate. Surprisingly, in this case, it did, and the rest of the group started to quiet down. Some of the context is I have a bachillerato level of English. In the midst of this, I noticed neither Maria nor Juan, again, these names are not really specific, just general, was looking comfortable. Was looking comfortable. I made an effort to include both in the conversation, both using both their names, to show that I was attentive on their unease, given the fact that they weren't part of the disorder. Sticking to the timeline, I addressed the problem, showing how nowadays it is easy to lose temper in difficult situations. My students were attentive and understood that even in the most frustrating pattern found towards us as individuals, the best way to overcome is to take control of our feelings and see the best positive outcome, as I did in my class, not exploding in their behavior. Turning to a different point in my class, I started to take points in rules of etiquette and my choosing a positive approach. I use words like respectful, attentive, and cooperative, emphasizing the behavior I expected. Positive reinforcement goes a long way. Given the seriousness of the situation, I had a straightforward conversation with student A, making it clear that student A's behavior needed to change. When mentioning the school rules, I emphasized that it was something we all needed to abide by. By the end of the class, the atmosphere had calmed down, the room was quieter, and the students were more tuned in. They, they understood the importance of respecting not just the teacher, but each other too. It was a bit of a struggle, but addressing the situation with everyday language and a practical approach helped restore order and bring respect back into the classroom. Instead of just looking for punishment, my approach towards them was calm, but clear. Next time we would be able to handle together situations like this with respect. So in this story, I'm not gonna be talking much of the story, but I want to relate it specifically of what agreements can we find here. So first of all, I would like to start here with the use of singular forms in collective nouns. Although when we talk collective, we can refer to different number of people. In this case, we see my eighth grade class was buzzing. We know that in an eighth grade, we have multiple students, and we can consider the number of students as plural, but in this case, I'm talking collectively. For that reason, the agreement in this term of the verb that it's used to the noun of the subject, it's totally related as a singular. So we see how the use of the singular, it's related to the singular noun as a collective, but no as a plural. This is one that we find really straightforward here. The second one, it's more of a nominative case, which is a grammatical case used for a subject in a sentence. subjects. So we see here that student A responded with a cheeky remark. He was trying to be funny. He was trying to be open in the class, a little disrespectful, but he was really trying to pull off perspective. But we see here in English nouns and pronouns specifically, we can see that typically one of them performed the action. In this case, student A is the one performing the action. That's why we use him, or here is the nominative case as the one that is doing the action. He responded, giving me a cheeky remark. So we can see here a nominative case example. Then the next one that I find in my story is the use of the agreement in terms of pronoun. So we see here that the gender, in this case, it doesn't apply because when we say the word I, although I'm talking about myself, we would know the gender, but it's specifically speaking here using I, we don't have a gender. But we see how the number specifically is used. So in this case, I, which is a singular, needs to be used on one term of singular pronoun. But in this case, given that we're using the past form, we only use one form for either plural or singular form of the subjects in this case. And we see how the relation here, specifically in the terms of the pronoun, I also brought up the school rules. So when I say the school rules, in this case, we see that it's a plural of phrase because we're talking about the rules in the school. But when I come to the second clause, I add here the word it, which is representing the word school rules, making it singular in this case, because I'm referring to this action and I can use this agreement referring to the object, again, as a collective object. So in this case, not specifically talking about the number, but it's specifically talking about the collective as the collective. The next one that I found here, it's the use of singular subjects. So we see here Maria and Nor Juan. Again, these names are really random and common in our country. It's not really the names of my students, but we see here that using the connectors nor and using also near in this case, these subjects are connected to one another. If I would have used the word and or different connectors for them, making them plural, I will use instead the verb in this case for the agreement where. But since the connector for these singular subjects is nor and neither, it's referring to them as individuals. So that's why we use the form was in this case for them specifically. And that's why we require the singular form of the verb, although it's in past form. Then we find here, as a final example, a genitive case, which is the use of grammatical use of a possession. I intentionally put the apostrophe and the s after a's to show, again, student A redacting the number, to show, redacting the name, to show how we have the possession onto the student's A towards the behavioral noun. So this noun, we have two nouns in here. In this case, noun, which is student A, and behavior, which is the second noun. But this noun becomes possessive of this one, given the use of the apostrophe s, which refers to possession. So here are the 5 examples as collecting nouns, singular, nominative case in which we refer the action to the subject, and then we use the singular pronoun that it's referring to this collective noun, and then collective noun, although specifically plural, but we understand it as a whole, and that's why we use, in this case, it. Then we have the connector, neither nor, that makes them individual, and that's why we use them with a verb that it's in singular. And finally, we have the pronouns that they agree in terms of possession, the possession. So this noun and this noun are connected to one another, this one being possessed by noun one by using the apostrophe and the s. Thank you so much for your attention.